Hello and welcome to Leaders Talk, where we meet leaders, thinkers, and trailblazers among one in Beijing. And our guest today is the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, His Excellency Mr. Gaston Brown. Now, one might not readily know that Antigua and Barbuda was in fact one of the first countries of the Caribbean to join China's Belt and Road Initiative. And this Prime Minister, Mr. Gaston Brown, was the first head of state from that region to visit China in the year 2024. What is behind the increasingly robust engagement between China and this Eastern Caribbean nation? Here's my conversation with Prime Minister Brown. His Excellency Prime Minister Brown, thank you so much for joining us on Leaders Talk, talking about Antigua and Barbuda. To be honest with you, many ordinary Chinese would be like, they haven't quite heard about it, but they would love to know more. So what are some of the interesting facts and perhaps hidden secrets about your country that people, ordinary Chinese folks, viewers should know about?
Well, it's certainly one of the most beautiful island states in the world. And I'll say here, the best country for tourism. So those who are interested in vacationing in the Caribbean, the country to visit is Antigua and Barbuda. We actually boast 365 beaches, one beach for every day of the year. And we're talking about the most beautiful beaches in the entire world. You know, it's constantly, I'd say, temperatures in the region of about 25 to 30 degrees. Very pleasant. Most beautiful beaches in the world. Turquoise waters, good food, good history. Just a great place to be.
Prime Minister Brown, you certainly came from very humble beginnings, and you said yourself, and I quote, you were basically on your own since you were 9 years old, spending time with
great-grandmother who was born in 1894, partially blind and illiterate. It was very difficult to survive. I mean, she was unemployed. And then after she died, I went to live with my mom, and then she became mentally ill when I was 9 years old. So in order to survive, I had to run errands in order to survive. I mean, even though some may look at it and say that, it was a difficult childhood, it helps to build capacity, it helps to build character. And at the same time, it helps to keep the individual grounded. And certainly when individuals like myself find ourselves in a leadership position, then we're always empathetic to the needs of others, and we'll always go the extra mile to assist.
Talk about so many challenges. People would assume that it would be easy, right? I mean, a country of 110,000 people is not necessarily the case.
You're absolutely right. Small island states are extremely vulnerable, if not as a result of their size, certainly based on the various exogenous shocks. They include climate shocks. You would have known the situation with the various crises, the global crisis, the COVID crisis, and whenever you have these senseless conflicts and wars, they also impact disproportionately on small island states. And in addition to that, our resource endowment is so limited that we generally do not have the resources to respond adequately to the myriad shocks that we have had to contend with. I mean, even the issue of debt has been a major issue for small island states. And you'd recognize too that the same costs that it requires, or the same pricing for a mile of road in a developed country, it's the same price in a small island developing state. And we don't have the scale. I mean, we don't have the type of capacity to earn the revenues in order to sustain, let's say, a high level of development. And that is why small island states continue to rely on various developmental partners in order to fund the development. So those vulnerabilities and the resource constraints, constraints in terms of the size of the population, constraints in terms of the limited financial resources, they make it extremely difficult to govern. And as a consequence, leaders have had to be very creative running small island states. It requires far more effort, more creativity, more innovativeness. Whereas some may believe that the small size will make it less difficult to govern, that is not necessarily the case.
You've traveled to places where others couldn't be, seen things others couldn't imagine, and heard stories you can't be sure whether to believe. They say that you're privileged, that people look up to you, but only you know how much effort you've made. You're on the ultimate journey to discover a country with 5,000 years of history and nearly 1.5 billion people. Is it a green countryside or a vast sea of neon lights and skyscrapers? Is it a dangerous land choked with smog or the blue sky of a summer's day? What is this China for you? And what is this China for the rest of the world? Cgtn. See the difference.
Antigua and Barbuda is located in the northeast of the Caribbean Sea, consisting of 3 islands, Antigua, Barbuda, and Redonda. It was one of the earliest countries in the Eastern Caribbean region to establish diplomatic relations with China. 41 years since the establishment of diplomatic relations, China and Antigua and Barbuda have always respected and supported each other, becoming a model of equal treatment and win-win cooperation between large and small countries. Prime Minister Gaston Brown has publicly thanked China for its support to Antigua and Barbuda on many occasions.
I believe that China is the most important developed country to Antigua and Barbuda in terms of the support that it has given us over the decades. I believe that the relationship between Antigua and Barbuda and China is one of the best examples of a relationship between a powerful country and one of the least powerful countries in the world.
Prime Minister Brown, you said before this trip, and this is really impressive, that China and Antigua and Barbuda perhaps enjoys one of the closest relationships of any big country and small country. So after this trip, how would you characterize our relations?
I believe that the relationship will be further enhanced. We would have signed a number of cooperation agreements today. Yesterday, we opened the Antigua Barbuda embassy here in Beijing. So not only we have a permanent and physical presence here, because that embassy will continue into perpetuity, but also closer people-to-people exchanges. We have more Antiguans and Barbudans who've been trained here. We have a number of students here. When it comes to the benevolence of the People's Republic of China, there is, let's say its contribution for that matter, to global peace and prosperity is unmatched. And I think too, the contributions and the more recent contributions by the PRC, they are driven by the philosophy of your leader, who speaks about a shared future for all, which I think is a very noble vision for all of humanity. And China, during the last decade, would have contributed up to $1 trillion to developing countries globally to help them to build capacity in various areas so that they could lift their people out of poverty. President Xi is operating from a higher level of human endeavor and certainly very empathetic and committed to human development globally. And I think that makes him easily the most powerful, the most respected leader on the planet. And I would adhere to that. Antigua and Barbuda has been the beneficiary of the benevolence of the People's Republic of China. In fact, China has helped us to build capacity in many areas of our development. Again, you can see that global reach, that global commitment to empower nations and to lift people out of poverty and to literally implement that vision, that shared future prosperity, to give tangible effect to that vision.
I was really impressed when you used the word empathy to describe the Chinese president, and considering his where life has taken him in one of the poorest neighborhoods, in Chinese countrysides, and as grassroots officials governing various regions of the country, spending time with average folks.
You understand the pain of others, and then you cannot see them hurting and not help. And this is where, in the words of President Xi, that we all have an obligation as human beings to help each other, to be benevolent with each other, recognizing our common humanity. And the fact, too, that by helping each other, it is egalitarian. It's a win-win for everyone. So, again, I can understand that President Xi's upbringing would have obviously kept him humble and empathetic, perhaps unlike others who may not have had that type of cultural orientation in their youth. I have great admiration for President Xi as one who will consider to be easily the most impactful global leader. And we all know of the various initiatives, to include the Belt and Road Initiative, the GDI Initiative, the Civilization and Security Initiatives. So again, kudos to President Xi.
I'll ask you about those initiatives. Mr. Prime Minister, you once said that the world is failing developing countries, and I quote you. You also said, in the meanwhile, China has been using its resources to assist developing countries globally, building capacity to ensure that we too enjoy some level of prosperity, an issue that you briefly touched upon. Is that why you support China's Global Development Initiative and Global Security Initiative? You think this can be a promising new prototype?
Absolutely, and the Belt and Road Initiative. I mean, as I said to you, there are some countries which, if it wasn't for this funding architecture that China would have developed, we would have been precluded from accessing adequate funding to fund our development. So, again, what China is doing here is very important. It's an act of benevolence that is appreciated literally by all developing states that would have accessed Chinese funding. And I would say here that the various initiatives have resonated globally, including the Belt and Road Initiative. And again, as I said before, we have been beneficiaries of that initiative. And whereas the developed world, they continue to dominate global resources and have not been very benevolent. China, on the other hand, even though not the wealthiest country on the planet, has been sharing, and whereas it's obviously developing, its own people and lifting them out of poverty, which in itself is phenomenal in terms of what China has done within the last 4 decades. It's also sharing with others and helping to ensure that there is a shared future of prosperity globally.
Talking about a newly added initiative, Global Civilization Initiative, many international scholars believe that this is a rethink, a rebuttal to previous paradigms, such as Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations, to name just a few. Do you think this Chinese initiative on civilizations, emphasizing common grounds, common humanity, holds promise for the future of the world? Absolutely.
As I said, we all have a common humanity. We have one planet. We all live literally in the same neighborhood. We all call planet Earth. And there has to be continued collaboration in order to protect human civilization and to protect our planet. So these are sustaining philosophies that will redound to the benefit of all. And again, commendation to the type of philosophical thinking that President Xi and certainly the PRC have brought to human endeavor and human thinking as we seek to have a more prosperous and resilient world.
Facing the unknown is always difficult. In a world in turmoil, it's easy to lose orientation. But when the storms come, we have to see the possibilities, reinvent, find new opportunities, discover a path forward. Cgtn. See the difference.
A land full of natural resources and ingenuity, where millions are embracing a vibrant middle class, divided by politics, but united by hope. Latin America is changing rapidly. Witness the change on America's Now.
There is no more they, or you, or me. In today's economic landscape, there is only we. An interconnected world of business, trade, and investment. Daily coverage told simply, with insight and new perspectives. Global business. We've got the world covered. In 2018, China and Antigua and Barbuda signed a Memorandum of Understanding on jointly building the Belt and Road Initiative, making Antigua and Barbuda the first country in the Eastern Caribbean region to do so. The cooperation between the two sides has brought tangible benefits to the people of both countries. In September 2022, the project to expand and improve the Port of St. John's, built with China's assistance, was successfully completed, making Antigua and Barbuda home to the largest multi-purpose port in the Eastern Caribbean region, bringing new impetus to local economic development.
Due to the new port that we have right now, we have better innovations, better technology, and a better facility, to be honest. That we also have a better way of life.
Assigned to the project since 2019 in August. I think the project that has been happening since then is a good thing for the port in terms of redefining and primarily upgrading the spaces and basically uplifting the area. And of course, it has brought many benefits for the cargo importation to Antigua and Barbuda.
Your country is the first country in the East Caribbean to join the Belt and Road Initiative.
Correct.
Let's talk about some specific projects. The Port of St. John and its renovation and extension project. What does infrastructure programs such as this one mean to your country and your economy?
Well, very important. And what would have happened during the last 2 decades is that Antigua and Barbuda would have gotten funding, concessional funding that ordinarily we could not access through the World Bank or the IMF, and even on better terms. So when the detractors of the PRC speak about the debt trap, I can tell you that that is certainly not true. In the case of Antigua and Barbuda, and if it wasn't for the concessional loans from the People's Republic of China, as well as the ODA assistance that we received, we would not have been able to successfully pursue a number of projects. So, for example, the rebuilding of our airport, the airport terminal, the rebuilding of our seaport facility or cargo port. The total funding there would have been in the region of about, the People's Republic of China is the most benevolent country on the planet. And that President Xi, in terms of his whole philosophical outlook of a shared future, is extremely commendable. I mean, a very noble vision in which he's delivering in very tangible ways, and in which these developing countries are benefiting in tangible ways.
Talking about agriculture cooperation, that is another important facet of our cooperation. And not so long ago, you toured around the Longping high-tech agricultural farm. I remember whereby you basically picked up a fruit from a plant and
Correct.
ate it
Correct.
right away.
Correct.
How did you like that one?
Very good. And again, Longping has been helping us to build capacity in the area of agriculture. We are trying to achieve some level of food security here. About 80% of what we consume in Antigua is actually imported, and primarily from the United States. Again, that's one of the challenges in a small island state, not having the labor pool to do the agricultural work. Antigua and Barbuda was always a very arid country, but whereas our precipitation was about 38 inches of rain annually, that is reduced dramatically to about 18 inches. So as a consequence, most of our aquifers, our ponds, our dams, they dried up. There's no water. In fact, our major dam, Potworks Dam, for most part of the year, we've had animals grazing in that dam. So we have asked the People's Republic of China to assist us in addressing the production of water and also the repiping, because our piping infrastructure was built over 100 years ago by the Brits during the colonial days. And this is a common issue within the English-speaking Caribbean region. So the cooperation agreement that we signed today will look at the issue of repiping and also helping us to increase our water production. And by so doing, China also be contributing to the water supply to help us to grow more food so that we can achieve some level of food security.
Let's talk about climate change. Barbuda was devastated in 2017 by Hurricane Irma. You toured the site and you told reporters Barbuda right now is literally a rubble. Just how vulnerable are low-lying countries such as yourself when it comes to facing natural disasters, often induced and worsened by climate change?
Extremely vulnerable. The example you just quoted there in Barbuda is a typical example in which 95% of the properties were either damaged or destroyed. And that's no exaggeration. That is precisely what happened. So as a consequence, these small island states have had to contend with repeated hurricane damage to infrastructure, to economy, damage to buildings, and normally very costly and literally beyond the means of these small states to recover. So climate change is a significant existential threat facing all small island states in the Caribbean and the Pacific and Indian Oceans. And that is why we continue to advocate for a reduction in emissions and for more sustainable green technologies, green development. And I certainly want to commend China for the greening of the Belt and Road Initiative, because at the end of the day, as I said before, we have a common civilization, we live on a common planet, and we must pursue our development in a sustainable way. So the greening of the Belt and Road Initiative is certainly a welcome initiative.
Mr. Prime Minister, on the issue of Taiwan, there have been efforts by the outside parties to externalize and internationalize the issue of Taiwan. How do you look at such secessionist activities, and what is the position of Antigua and Barbuda?
Well, Antigua and Barbuda has been a consistent supporter of the One China principle. And I can say to you definitively that that will not change under my leadership, and certainly the leadership of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. We understand the history of the People's Republic of China and Taiwan. We are fully aware that Taiwan is a province of China. And, we believe in the principle of sovereignty and protection of territorial integrity. So as a country that is consistent and certainly a country that stands on the truth, we have no choice but to support the PRC based on the fact that Taiwan is a province of China. So the history is clear. In fact, I really think it's an indisputable fact that Taiwan is a part of China. And clearly there's some who are trying to make a geopolitical meal out of it. So we are very clear as to what the truth is, and we'll continue to support. And I don't know why other countries are seeking to get involved in the internal affairs here of Taiwan and the PRC, and to, let's say, exploit perceived differences and even to provoke differences. In fact, I have to commend the PRC too in that the leadership would not have taken any hostile act in order to reunite Taiwan with China.
Prime Minister Brown, it is an honor to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Now, if you think about it, Antigua and Barbuda is a country with a population of 100,000, and China, 1.4 billion. Yet a strong relationship is emerging out of these two countries in diplomacy, in trade, and in investment, which really epitomizes China's increasingly robust engagement with Latin America and the Caribbean world. Thank you for watching this episode of Leaders Talk. I'm Meng Guan in Beijing. I'll see you again next time.